At some point, my TBR stopped being exciting and started to feel more like an untouched collection, or a stressful pile of choices, if you will. So in 2026, I'm doing something about it. Every month this year, I'm using different themes to read down the books I already own, and slowly but surely read through my physical TBR. For March, the theme had to be related to St. Patrick's Day, so we're gonna see how lucky I am. Instead of picking safe things to read, I've made a pot of reads, a grab bag of books with mixed reviews, so I've been avoiding reading them. This month, I'm trusting luck with books that I already feel like might be a gamble. Whatever I pull from this pot, I'm gonna add to my current March TBR and vlog about my month while I read it. I'll do check-ins, final thoughts. This month should be interesting because we have spring break and so we have a family trip coming up, so I'll make sure to bring you along. So I have to update my numbers because they were a little off for January and February, and it took me a minute to figure out why. My math was still the same, it was my starting number that was off. I'm actually starting with less books than I had originally mentioned because I realized that my digital tracker included ebooks, and I'm not including ebooks in this list. I actually don't own that many ebooks, so I could include them, but I just wanted to make things simple and focus on physical books that I own. I actually started February with 146 physical books. I read 4 of those during the month of February and added 3. That's not bad. So my total for the beginning of March is 145. So I went down. You guys, Aardvark had really good picks, so it's definitely not. There's going to be way more books coming in this month, I think. This month is going to be a test of luck with my TBR. So I have a list of 10 books here that on Goodreads, and I know we could go on about reviews and how crappy reviews are, especially on Goodreads, because Goodreads has a very flawed review system. But I had to have some sort of criteria. So I have a list of 10 books here that on Goodreads are anywhere from a 3 to a 3.75. And I know you may be asking yourself, like, that's not in the middle of 5. But for Goodreads, a 3 to a 3.7 is a meh book. I want to pick something in the middle, something that could go either way. They could go hit or miss. There are ones that, some of them are actually pretty recent, and I'm surprised they're in the meh review category. And others I have had for a while, and I'm just slowly losing interest. So I need the motivation to read them. I've put all of those books in this cauldron. I wrote them on pieces of paper that I rolled to look like little coins. So I have a lucky pot of gold here. But before I pick, let's meet the contenders. This first one I was surprised by. So I'm going in order from lowest review to highest review, but within that range of 3 to 3.7. So I didn't actually own anything in the 3. I own things in the 2 and lower range, but I didn't own anything in the 3. Our first book, the lowest book on this list, which I was actually surprised by, is Julie Chan is Dead. Julie Chan is Dead has a rating of 3.44. I have a feeling that some of this is polarizing because people can't decide if it's just like sharp and witty and unsettling, or they just like don't connect with the main character. So I'll tell you what it's about. This is a girl whose twin sister is a very famous social media influencer. And when she's found dead, our main character, Mia, returns home and basically takes on her sister's social media persona because she wants to live as the other half does, if you will. However, she kind of uncovers the dark side of social media and influencing. I know that books related to social media and influencers can be very polarizing, but I was really surprised. I've heard a lot of good things about this book, so I was surprised it was so low on the rating scale. This is a recent acquire of mine, and it's one that I would definitely like to read. So my next contender is Gifted and Talented, which has a 3.54 rating on Goodreads. This is by Olivia Blake, who I know is a very polarizing writer. The way she writes for some people is just like hit or miss. I know some people say that it feels like she uses big unnecessary words when she doesn't need to. I have only read a short story by her and I actually enjoyed it. It was funny and humorous. I am interested to read like a full-length novel by her. Olivia Blake writes horror, she writes general fiction, she writes like sci-fi fantasy. This is almost like magical realism. I know there is a magic fantasy element as a part of this book, but I also have heard that it's not the main focus of the book. This is 3 siblings that they're 3 gifted gifted siblings are navigating their personal failures, their personal lives, their personal choices, while they are all rivaling to gain their father's empire, their father's company. So their father has died, and the three gifted siblings are all competing to inherit his magitech empire. So I know there's a little bit of magic in here, but it's not really supposed to be the main part of the plot. Next up is female fantasy, which has a rating of 3.59. This is another one that has a little bit of, it's not social media. Our main character is a fan fiction writer in this. So I think this one is kind of hit or miss for people because it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit unhinged, almost like satire, and you have to suspend your disbelief to really enjoy it. This is about a fan fiction romantasy writer who finds out that the main character of her favorite fantasy series, her favorite book series, is actually based on a real person. And so she kind of goes on an unhinged, I don't want to say it's stalkery, I haven't read it yet, but she goes on an unhinged journey to find him. So I think this one's a little bit polarizing because you have to suspend your belief in reality for this one. But I think it sounds fun. The next one you might not be surprised by. So we've got an Ali Hazelwood. This is not her most recent one, but it is a relatively recent one. I think it is her lowest rated book. Don't quote me on that though. So Not in Love has a 3.64 on Goodreads. This is, how do I put this? I like blind buy all of Ali Hazelwood's books. After I read the first couple, I'm just gonna buy them. And this is the one that I have put off reading because I know that this has some trigger warnings, but also types of relationships that I don't normally vibe with. When I read the trigger warnings, I was like, oh, yeah, like she opens with a little letter. There are some serious themes in this book, and I know that people were very like split on, the emotional connection of these characters, but they are enjoying the spin-off book that came from this one. So this is part of her STEMinist series. So we've got a biotech researcher. She's got a very disciplined life, but it's upended when another company is trying to come in and attempt like a hostile takeover. And I'm assuming the guy that she ends up hooking up with is part of the company that's trying to come in and do the hostile takeover. But I do know that their relationship for a good chunk of this book is very like benefits without any emotional attachment. So that one's a little risky. So I have an aardvark book that I can't remember. It wasn't last month, but it was the month before. So an Arcane Inheritance has a 3.66 rating on Goodreads. When I decided to get this from aardvark, I was so excited about it. And then I was very surprised by the mixed reviews. I mean, it sounds like something that I should love, that I should enjoy. It's a little bit of like dark academia, but I think it has mixed reviews on like concept versus execution. So we've got an elite university built on forbidden magic, and then we have a BIPOC student that enters this elite university, and she just has like, she has to, I don't think it's like trials, but she basically has to make it through the school year. This has like Ace of Spades vibes to me, except with a little bit more magic. So that was why I was interested in it. This next one has been on my physical TBR for quite some time. The Courting of Bristol Keats has a 3.67 on Goodreads. I'm surprised that this is higher than the Arcane Inheritance. This sounds like something that was right up my alley around the time that I bought it. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure I bought it because this was one of my first introductions to sprayed edges. But I've heard it's kind of all over the place. I do know there is a sequel, and I keep looking at, I think it is just a duology. I keep looking at the sequel, but I'm definitely not going to buy it until I read this because it has such mixed reviews. This is a girl that thinks her father is dead, but finds out that he might be alive. So Bristol, our main character, needs to venture into the dangerous Fae realm and try to, make a deal with a lethal Fae king in order to get her father back. I wonder if this is no longer my vibe, but I'm still interested in reading it. I haven't quite been able to get rid of it yet. Next up is Our Infinite Fate. There's a lot of metallic on this one, so I'll try to angle it so you can see it. Our Infinite Fate also has a rating of 3.67 on Goodreads, and this is another one of those that seems to be polarizing because people can't decide if it's, tragic or like beautifully tragic or just like too heavy tragic, essentially. So we have two characters that are soulmates and meet over and over and over again over centuries. On her 18th birthday, he kills her in some way. That's really all I know, and they just meet over and over and over again, and they are trying to find a way to break the cycle, essentially. It's not very long. This is like in comparison to some other books like this that I would think, especially something like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, like that's another one of those cyclical meeting over long periods of time kind of books, and that's much bigger than this, so I'm curious to see how they did all of that in such a shorter book. I hope this finds you well. Has a 3.74 rating on Goodreads. This just sounded so funny and quirky to me that I kind of just I kept seeing meh reviews, but I just was like, you know what, I want to try it. I'm going to give it a try. I think I got it from Book Outlet. I don't know if it was marketed correctly, if it's going to come off differently than, if the execution is different than what I think it's going to be. To me, it sounds like it's going to be very funny, but I wonder if it's almost some of the reviews make it seem like it's almost too introspective, and so maybe that's not the vibe that I'm looking for. This is basically a woman who writes all these emails and in white unseeable text writes other information in the emails, like things she really wants to say but is too afraid to say, and eventually that bites her in the butt, and all of those secret messages, those private emails are unearthed, and she just has to try to protect her job. It sounds kind of quirky to me. So this next one is an older book for sure, and I'll kind of explain. You might notice it has some library glare to it, and I'll explain why. Here and Now and Then has a 3.76 rating on Goodreads. It seems like it's polarizing because it kind of just depends on what you like, what you're looking for in a book. And I mean, that's exactly what I'm trying to figure out here. This is about a time-traveling agent who's been stuck in the past for 18 years, and he basically has to risk everything and mess with time and collapse the time-space continuum. I don't really know, I'm throwing words out here. That in order to try to save a daughter that he was never meant to have. I was really into Blake Crouch, and I had read Recursion and Dark Matter, and I was looking for other things like that. This was before his third book came out, Upgrade, and this was something that just kept coming up over and over and over again, so I got it from the library, and then I promptly lost it somewhere in my car and thought that I had lost it, period, and so I just told the library that I would buy it, and then shortly after I paid for it from the library, it showed up in my car. And so I was like, well, I wanted to read it, so I might as well keep it. But that's why it has the library covering on it. I did not steal it from my library. And last but not least, this is one, I'm excited to read almost all of these in all honesty. But this is the highest rated book from this list. So this is The Hexologists. This has a 3.79 on Goodreads. I think this just sounds adorable. It sounds quirky. I think I'm actually really going to enjoy this one. I don't know if some people just find it annoying or if they just don't like the historical science fantasy elements to it. But this is about a happily married couple that use their unique magical tools, their unique magical abilities to solve high stakes mysteries. And I know that this at least has a second one. I don't know if there's more coming. This is one that I have been interested in, but I was surprised to see in the 3 to 3.7-ish range. I'm interested in all of these. I mean, I think I say that every time because, I bought all these books at some point. There was a reason I bought them. So you might notice my other books in my TBR this month are very thick tomes. I've got 2 sequels. I've got The Eye of the Bedlam Bride, which is book 6 of Dungeon Crawler Carl, Nona the Ninth, book 3 in the Locked Tomb series. These are not short books. We have spring break coming up, so I will be able to plow through some books during spring break, but my other books up here are definitely going to take time. That being said, I anticipate all of those books being really good. I've read the first 2 in the Locked Tomb series, and so I can't wait to jump back into that world. And then obviously the Dungeon Crawler Carl books, as big as they are, I just fly through them. And so there are a couple of these books that I'm just worried with time. Some of these are on a little bit of the longer side, so I worry that if they're not good and I don't read them as quickly, that I'm just gonna slog through them. I also think my other books I anticipate being really high star reads, very good reads, and so it would kind of suck to be the one meh book on the list. I mean, that's part of the game. I'm gonna read whatever I pull from this little bucket. I wrote all of their titles. This is my cauldron full of my lucky coins. That's what we're going with here, people. I have to read at least 30% before I DNF, and then once I finish it, then I have to decide if I'm gonna keep it or unhaul it, add it to my unhaul pile, and get it off the shelves. Let's see what potentially meh book I'm gonna read this month. Here, I wrapped them up all like little coins. At least that's what I was going for. Okay. Oh, is that one? Okay, that's one. All right, so we have an Arcane Inheritance. I'm going to add an Arcane Inheritance to my list. I'll read you a little bit more now that we know what we're reading. Ellery Morgan is determined to prove that she belongs at Warren University, an Ivy League school whose history is deeply linked to occult rumors and dark secrets. But as she settles into her freshman year, something about the ornate buildings and shadowy paths feels strangely familiar, and with every passing day, the sense of déjà vu grows increasingly sinister. Despite all logic, despite all reason, despite all the rules of reality, Ellery knows one thing to be true. She has been here before, and if she can't convince brooding legacy student Hudson Graves to help her remember a past that seems determined to slip through her fingers, as if by some insidious magic, this time she may lose herself for good. Well, this is good. This is one of my Aardvark books from a couple months ago, and I always like to make sure that I'm staying up on those, especially since I just got a whole bunch more Aardvark books. And we'll see if I agree with the 3.6 average that this has, the 3.66 average, if you will, that this has on Goodreads. I'll make sure to keep you posted. I'll bring you guys along when we go on our family spring break trip until I get started. It's the middle of March, and we're officially on our spring break, so I thought I would get started on an Arcane Inheritance by Camila Cole. I was gonna wait until later in spring break. We actually get a 2-week spring break, which is crazy. I've worked at other schools and I've gone to other schools obviously and never, like 2-week spring break is not normal, but we are blessed to have a 2-week spring break. And I was gonna wait until later in our spring break to start this. So I just finished Dungeon Crawler Carl 6, The Eye of the Bedlam Bride, and it was really good. And my plan was to read Nona the Ninth next, but this is gonna sound really weird. I don't know why I do this. I didn't want to read 2 books that I thought were gonna be really, really good so close together. I don't know if that's just me. Do other people do that? Like if you read too many good books back to back, I know that doesn't make any sense. You know, sometimes you need like a palate cleanser. I suspect Nona the Ninth is also gonna be really good. And so I wanted to read something different in between. I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason for it. Let me know if you do that too, so I don't feel so crazy. So anyway, I actually did start it last night. I'm not very far. I don't know if you can see my bookmark. I'm only like 25 pages in. Basically, I'm a little bit into the 2nd chapter. If you can tell, this is an Aardvark copy. So I've been getting books from Aardvark since June of last year. I've gotten books pretty much every month. I think I've skipped at least 2 months. Sometimes I just get one book. Sometimes I get a full box. Sometimes I get all 3. I actually have a full box waiting to be opened. So I got this in January, so I really haven't had it that long. And I remember I had heard some buzz about it before Aardvark announced it, and I was interested because it's a dark academia, it's written by a BIPOC author, and it sounded right up my alley, which is why I got it. And then after it had been out for a little bit, I had started to read other reviews about how it was kind of meh, which means it's perfect for this video series. So as I mentioned, I've read the first 20 some odd pages, and we have already gotten some classism going on, some socioeconomics going on. Ellery is a Black student, and Hudson Graves is also a Black student, although it takes her a minute to realize that he's Black. She kind of like does not a double take. She notices he dyes his hair. I have a feeling that will come into play later. So it's an Ivy League school, and Ellery has waited a while to get into a full school because she's middle class. Her family makes just enough money that she doesn't qualify for grants and scholarships that are gonna fully pay for her schooling, but she is not wealthy enough to pay for school outright. So she actually falls into where a lot of people fall into nowadays. And so she has been waiting a while to go to college. So she is 21 in the book. She's a freshman, but she is older because she's been out of school for 3 years. And I'm assuming she's in law school of some kind based on the classes that she's been talking about and the books that she's been reading. We've gotten a hint of some of the classism that's involved. She has to do a work study at a coffee shop. She has had to wait a little bit to save up the money, and this university offered her a free ride. She's had to come in and take it sounded like a placement test, kind of. That's not what they called it, but that's kind of what it sounded like, because she had been out of school for so long. We learn a little bit about the history of the school. Ellery starts out in the library, which is called the Graves, named after the people that donated the money to build it. And Hudson Graves, who I feel like is going to become, he's our rival slash future love interest, is part of that family. So he is also one of these elitists, you know, he kind of is snooty to her. They are academic rivals as well. Like, she is holding her own academically against him. There hasn't been a whole lot of magic. There's been mention of a ghost in the library. I don't know if that is like, oh, there's a ghost in the library and everybody is totally fine with there being a ghost in the library, or if that's kind of like one of those stories like there's a pool on the roof, like that's what we tell the freshmen. But there is, so I can show you. On the trigger warning page, there are these symbols. They're different types of magic: divination, evocation, incantation, which I actually know from previous books I've been reading. When you're reading, something starts happening that seems a little uncanny. She is walking around the university and she doesn't really know where she is, even though she should know where she is. When that part starts happening, we see the symbol show up in the corner of the book. And the symbol matches with one of those symbols at the beginning, which is interesting because I think if I was just listening to the audio, you wouldn't see that symbol, and so you wouldn't know whether something is happening or not. But I have a feeling that the different symbols are indicating that it's not just in her head. There is some essence of magic that is happening. I've seen 2 of those symbols so far, just in the first like 25 pages. I have a feeling that classism, racism, maybe even a little sexism is going to come into play. The one thing I'm concerned about, this is what I get for reading reviews. People have mentioned that the writing in here, it's very detailed. It's very, I don't know if flowery is the right word. There are a lot of like similes and metaphors for the area that she's in and what she's doing, which is good. You know, I have no problem with that. One of the critiques of this book is that the author spends a lot of time writing about this mundane detail, and then when it gets into, you know, like interesting plot points, they're very glossed over and they're not as detailed. I haven't seen that yet. That's one of the things I'm cautious of. It doesn't have YA writing vibes. I would say it's leaning more towards like older YA, new adult, if you will. Sometimes I feel like authors will write a book that it's like they should have just committed to YA and then throw swear words in there, which again, I have absolutely no problem with swear words. I am not opposed to them. I use them, not in front of children. Sometimes it feels like an author writes a YA book and then sprinkles swear words in to call it adult, and I don't understand why. That hasn't happened. It doesn't feel unnatural yet, but it's kind of like teetering on that edge of, I would definitely classify this as new adult. I actually don't know if it's considered adult or YA. I don't know that new adult or NA is like an official designation or anything. So I am glad that I pulled this book. I do want to read it. I do like dark academia. I do like when books address issues of racism, socioeconomics, misogyny, that kind of stuff. So I think that'll be interesting. I think I mentioned this before. I read the book Ace of Spades. I feel like this is going to kind of go in that secret, dark Ace of Spades route. If you've read it, you know what I mean. That's where I'm at. If I finish, we're going on a trip. As I mentioned, my spring break is 2 weeks, and it's always in the middle of March. And I live in Ohio, and Ohio in March is not pleasant weather. So we are going to go somewhere for spring break. We usually do. The past couple of years, we've gone somewhere for spring break. My first year working at this new job with a 2-week mid-March spring break, my daughter and I sat around and did almost nothing for 2 weeks because Ohio in the middle of March is not really conducive to doing things outside or to going places in, you know, the nearby area unless you're just going to spend a whole bunch of money trying to entertain yourself. So the past couple of years we've actually gone on vacation during spring break, and then we don't usually go places in the summer. So I'm hoping to take you along with me. So we're going to go to New York City, which I know is not going to be warm or anything like that. It's going to be very similar, but we'll find more things to do. I feel like I might actually finish this before we go though. And if I do, I'm actually going to pull another book. So we'll see how far I get. I'll make sure to check in with you guys when I'm either at like the 30 to 50% mark. I'll kind of judge it based on what's happening in the book. And yeah, I think that's all I got for now. ready to leave for our spring break trip in just a couple days. I bought some new clothes for my daughter and I. She is growing like a weed and she wears like a uniform in school, and so when she has to wear non-school clothes, I feel like I'm frantically scrambling to try to find clothes for her. So I bought her some new clothes and I got me a couple pieces to wear on our vacation. I'm about halfway, actually I'm exactly halfway through an Arcane Inheritance, so I thought I would do a check-in, plus I have some new books that I've hauled in last month. I may have gotten one in. I think I did. I think I got my owl crate. My owl crate is delayed again. I won't get the March owl crate until April. It's okay if it's delayed a little bit. It's kind of a good thing because I picked out 3 books from my aardvark, and when I was clothes shopping, I also was like, well, what the heck? I will buy some books as well. And so I have brought in probably as many books as I'm gonna read this month. In terms of keeping my numbers down, I'm gonna maybe break even, hopefully. First, let's talk about an Arcane Inheritance. I might get a little spoilery. I will let you know, like I'll mark it if I do get into some spoiler content, but for the most part, I'm gonna try to keep this spoiler free. I took some notes. Oh, geez, that was my phone. I took some notes, and so I want to make sure that I bring up the things that I've been noting. The plot on the cover of the book is pretty self-explanatory. It's about a girl, she's 21, and she's gotten a full ride scholarship. It's called the Godwin Scholarship to this Ivy League university called Warren University. It is a made-up university, but they do mention other Ivy League universities that are real, and they mention them in reference to like secret societies, and there are interludes in this book that are just like 1 or 2 pages that are not from our main character's point of view. They're like historical background about the university, about the founders, about things that are related to the origin of the university. She has only been at the school for a couple months. I think at where I'm at in the book now, it's like October, November, and odd things are happening to her. She's had a couple incidents of like really strong deja vu, not just like your typical deja vu, but where she is picturing having these exact same conversations again, but it's with people that she hasn't known for that long. She's had a couple incidents where she was like walking somewhere, walking on campus, and then all of a sudden was not on campus. She was in a completely different area. She tells you about a time when she was really young and that happened to her. She kind of mentions that this isn't the first time this has happened to her. She doesn't say that it has happened often, so it does kind of throw her for a loop. She kind of is like, oh no, not again. But those types of things keep happening to her. She keeps being put in situations where she says things and does things that she shouldn't, for example. So our main character is named Ellery. Sometimes she goes by Lore. So Ellery has a rivalry with Hudson Graves, who his family comes from like wealth and they have purchased buildings on the campus. She starts working with him and she shows up with a coffee and it's like a very specific order that was his, and he's like, oh, how'd you know? And there's no reason that she should know that. He at some point takes her to a restaurant and she orders without even looking at the menu because she knew what was on the menu. So little things like that, and she doesn't realize it until after the fact. Like, why did I know that? You know, why is this so familiar to me? For the first 25%, I'm gonna open my notes. One of the negative reviews that I've seen about this book are that it's very flowery and very descriptive. And I would say that is the case. Personally, I don't dislike it. It's not so flowery and descriptive that it's putting me off. At about the 25% mark, I notice that I'm enjoying it, that I'm enjoying the flowery descriptive nature when she's walking through campus, when she's picking out clothes, when she's doing the mundane. You are kind of walking through that with her. What's weird though, what's kind of like weird about the vibe is that when something magical happens or something uncanny or something odd, it is not expressed in a tone that seems shocking or out of the ordinary. You have those fantasy books where magic is very present in the world and everybody is aware that magic is there, and it's not odd for magical things to happen. And some people are magical and some people aren't, and sometimes your protagonist is late in coming to their magic or finds out they have magic that they didn't think they have. And then there's other books where it's the real world, but there's secret magic that's been hidden from everyone, and our main character like finds out about this whole other world that they didn't know existed. This book is a really weird meld of the two. It feels like a world where magic doesn't exist, nobody really believes in magic, but then when real magical things happen, our main character and all of the other side characters that she's with treat it as if it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that's a thing. It's really weird. It feels very, I keep thinking of like Truman Show or Get Out. It feels Get Out in the fact that she is a Black female immigrant. She's originally from Jamaica, and she is surrounded by, it actually is a pretty diverse cast of characters, but she is constantly surrounded by upper class white people, and not even necessarily white people, but upper class rich people that say things that are just kind of like, seriously, like you think that's the real world. And so in that sense, it feels like Get Out, where it's almost kind of like creepy horror, like weird things are going on. But there are times when it just feels like the Truman Show, in that all of the other characters are really bad fakers. I get the impression that they know what's going on and they're just really bad at selling it to our female main character. And then in turn, our Ellery is really bad at being surprised when she finds things out. I don't know, it is the weirdest meld. It almost feels like when something magical happens, I can't tell whether it's really happening or whether it's a dream. And there's been a couple times I've had to go back and reread because it's like, wait, did that just really happen? Like, why did that just happen so nonchalantly? And like nobody brought it to attention. I have a feeling that is what people are referencing in their comments. There is an element of a mystery. So Ellery is trying to figure out what's happening to her. What are all these weird things? I mentioned there was a ghost on campus in the library. There's a ghost, and so she's doing some research on the ghost. She has found out that the founders of the university originally began the university with the idea of magic. There's actually a really interesting quote that I liked. I marked it. So this is one of the founders. It's actually Godwin, which is the one that made the Godwin Scholarship. It says, "Magic," he wrote, "was at the heart of too many disparate cultures to be non-existent." I really do like this idea that there's so many cultures that believe in some form of magic, that how can it not be real? Ellery wants to do this seance to find out more about the ghost of the library, and she tells her friends, and at first they kind of are like, we don't believe you about all these weird things, but then they realize that she's really serious about all this stuff, so they're like, okay, we'll come along with you to do the seance. Cody says, I think there's a bruja in my family. Ellery's like, I'm gonna contact my aunt and collect all the materials for the Jamaican voodoo witchcraft. And it really brings to light the fact that there is a deep belief of magic in a lot of cultures, and if that is a universal thought, how could it not be real? I thought that was a really interesting foundational theme of the book. I don't believe in magic, don't get me wrong, but I do like that as kind of like the supporting evidence for magic in the book. However, as I moved into the halfway part of the book, I can't tell if some of this ambivalence to the mundane compared to the ambivalence of the magical things that are happening is coming from the audiobook narrator. I don't think it's just the audiobook narrator. It is in the tone of the book. I don't think that it's because of the tone the narrator's giving it. When I've read it without the narrator, I still get that same kind of tone. Like the tone for the big reveals just seems off. It doesn't seem as eye-opening or as shocking as it should. And then there really is a lot of repetition of the mundane. So the balance isn't quite right. To me, by the time I get to about the 50% of a book, I should feel very motivated by the plot. There needs to be a good balance of moving forward in the plot. I wrote that like I'm 40% and I feel like we're going in circles. So I feel like we learn a little bit, some weird stuff happens, but then it's almost like we go 2 steps forward and take 1 step back. That's the best way I can describe it. I mean, the plot is moving forward, but it just seems to be doing it very slowly. And I think it's because we're spending so much time researching and meeting up with people and going on dates. And while I do appreciate that those are aspects of college life, and I think they are acceptable early on in a book, by the 50% mark, I feel like we should be like making headway. I guess we'll call this a spoiler. So I will mark this as spoilery and then I'll put timestamps so you can jump ahead. So Ellery does actually start doing magic. They don't really explain why she is able to do it or how she's able to do it. She just like kneels down to a patch of grass and starts thinking about earth and creation, and then makes grass grow, and then just like stands up and walks away. And then she was being chased. A character that had chased her previously and was strangling her is chasing her in a stairwell. Hudson shows up and basically fire erupts from him and causes the person to disappear. And Ellery is like, so you can do magic? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I need to take you to the health center. And then just kind of leaves her. But there's been a couple things that he's mentioned where it is very obvious that he knows magic is real. When she does the seance, he gets mad at her and says, if you would have left your body for so long, you could have been stuck in the veil in between. And I don't understand why a poli-sci major would have any knowledge to say anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no basis for him to say stuff like that unless he's very aware of the magic. She literally sees like a blinding white fire erupt from him and cause somebody to disappear. And she's like, well, did you kill that person? And he's like, no, I don't murder people. And is like, I think I just made them disappear. And she just is totally okay with that being a thing. So magic is happening. There is no explanation for the basis of the magic. The world building and the foundation of the magic is not established. It's just happening. There is a mystery that she's trying to solve, and I feel like we are just constantly getting pieces and none of them are being connected. She has a suspicion that it is somebody that Hudson is one of his roommates named Boone, and so she decides to join the paper so she can keep an eye on Boone. And Hudson just blindly is like, okay, I'll keep an eye on him at home. Like, never mind the fact that this is his roommate. This is somebody he's known and is friends with. He's just totally okay with keeping on it. Like, I just really feel like every character in the book knows what's going on except for Ellery. But at the same time, I also think Ellery is really naive that she doesn't see all of these pieces. And maybe that's just because I, as the reader, see things from a different perspective, but everything is told from her perspective. So I feel like if I'm figuring it out, she should be figuring it out too. And at the same point, she does seem to be figuring it out. She does seem to be apprehensive and cautious of these people, but she's not having the correct emotional response, in my opinion. I would say the foundation of the world building, while it doesn't need to be there right now because there's a mystery, I hope that it gets there soon. Like, that's something I'm hoping for. Oh, I should have mentioned, spoilers over. I do really feel like I'm to the point in the book where we better start making some headway in the mystery. I feel like this book could go on the way it's going and we never get any answers and there never get any explanation. I would not be okay with that if that happened, but the way that it's written, I feel like that's what's going to happen. Like, it's just going to be this story about all these weird events with absolutely no explanation. Is it what I thought it was going to be? I mean, it is dark academia. It is, you know, has a little bit of a weird, like, Get Out, Ace of Spades kind of vibe to it. If it's going where I think it's going, I don't think it's doing anything new or unique. If it's going where I think it's going, I can't see keeping this. I don't see it being any more than maybe like a 3-star, because it's not doing anything new or unique. There is nothing about it that is really making it stand out from other things I've seen or read. It's not bad enough that I'm ready to DNF. I want to see where it goes, but it doesn't seem like something I'm going to keep right now. So, like I said, there still is another 50-ish%, a little less than 50%. So it might surprise me. It might change my mind. Maybe 50% is the point where we kind of are reaching like the climax. I do kind of feel like not a lot has happened, or the same things have happened over and over again in that first 50%. So I can see why this is getting mixed reviews. The writing is not bad. It is just the way that it is plotted out and the tone is just a little off. I'll probably finish it tomorrow, and I'll probably just wait and do a check-in when I finish it tomorrow, or maybe the day after, depending on if I finish it pretty late. In the meantime, let's look at my mini book haul. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my Aardvark books first. I don't think I got any books in Aardvark last month because none of them were really calling to me. And then this month, I got a full box. I'm a huge Dungeon Crawler Carl fan, so I had to get Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. I'm not expecting Dungeon Crawler Carl. I have heard mixed reviews about this, but I had to try it. I wanted to see what else Matt Dinniman could do. I don't believe this is a lit RPG. This is a sci-fi about, hold on, I'll just tell you what it's about. What happens when you become your planet's final boss? Oliver Lewis is our MC. All he wanted to do was run the family ranch with his sister, maybe play in his band, land, keep his family's aging fleet of intelligent agriculture bots ticking as long as possible. But then there's a complication. The settlers were promised they'd be left in peace. Earth's government now has other plans. A corporation comes in and is trying to evict everyone, and our main character is trying to hold down the farm, I think essentially is the plot of this. I'm still interested in it. It was worthwhile to buy. This one I was kind of surprised that I got. I ended up getting Edward Ashton's After the Fall. This is by the same author that did Mickey 17. Can't remember whether it's 7 or 17. The movie and the book have different numbers, which I enjoyed, but I can't see myself reading it again. But I did like the writing style, and so I went back and forth about getting this one. It's actually very similar to the other one. The Fall happened hundreds of years ago, where a species came in, took over humans, and basically humans are the pets now to this alien species. Our main character is the pet to a relatively nice alien who treats him well, but is really bad at managing his money and materials. And he ends up putting our main character, I should just look at our main character's name, John. His name's John. John ends up being collateral for his alien master's endeavor, and John knows that this guy is not really good at making choices. Some of the reviews I read on this said that it was funnier, it was nice and contained. I figured I would give this a go. This one I was really excited about. This one I was definitely going to get because I've heard nothing but good things about this. The Red Winter debut novel. I believe it's a retelling of a fairy tale or a retelling of an old legend. 1785, Professor Sebastian Graves receives news the terrible beast of Gévaudan, I'm going to pretend like I said that right, has returned, and the French countryside runs red in its wake. Sebastian knows the beast, a monster slayer for centuries of experience. He joined the hunt for the creature 20 years ago and watched it slaughter its way through a long and bloody winter. Even with the help of his indwelling demon, who takes payment in living hearts, it nearly cost him his life to bring the monster down. Now, 2 decades later, Sebastian has been recalled to the hunt by an estranged lover who shares a dark history with the beast and a terrible secret with Sebastian. I've just heard nothing but great things about this. I thought it was a great catch for an aardvark box. Basically, I think of it like I got 3 books for not very much money. And then these last 3, I purchased these on purpose on my own. So my last Read Down My TBR was about India Holton's Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. I really, really enjoyed it. So I went ahead and purchased the second one, The Geographer's Map to Romance. In the first one, our male main character is a cousin of 2 other characters. We meet his male cousin that is a geographer, and so that's what this one is about, Gabriel. So he was like a little side character in The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. He is the main character in this one. And then later this year, a 3rd book in this series, it's Love's Academic is the name of the series, is coming out about Gabriel's sister, which is the other cousin, the female cousin. I really loved the humor and the writing in the first one, and so I had to pick this one up to check it out. I keep hearing about these. For some reason, I have this interest. I mean, I feel like these are very similar in their vibe. This is A Curious Beginning. What is the name? Oh, it's a Veronica Speedwell mystery. So this is the first one in a series of mysteries that are set in late 1800s London. It's about Veronica Speedwell, and then there's a male love interest, Stoker, and I believe they have a pretty solid relationship throughout the majority of the series. I think book 9 or 10 just came out. This isn't fantasy or anything. This is purely just mystery. I do seem to really like the 1800s style historical romance or historical fantasy. I've heard lots of good things about this, and so I'm gonna give it a try. And then this book I have been wanting to buy for a while, Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. This was originally published a while ago, 2012 actually. And I almost bought it, not in 2012, maybe like 2 years ago, but then it became unavailable. I think it wasn't marketed well, and so it was pulled, and then a new publisher bought it, and it's been waiting to come out. And then when it came out, it was like $30. I didn't like how much it was. So it finally went on a price that I thought was reasonable. It's got some pretty fun cover art. This is a particular type of humor that you have to learn to appreciate. 1348, so it's during the Black Plague. A disgraced knight found a young girl alone in a village that was plagued by the Black Death. She tells Thomas that plague is only part of a larger cataclysm, and the fallen angels under Lucifer are rising in a second war on heaven. This disgraced knight, who's just kind of roaming around, tries to decide if he's going to help this girl. He ends up helping helping her. They go on this journey during the Black Death. It's supposed to be humorous and yet creepy / horror-y. I used to do research on the Black Plague and have always kind of found it fascinating. I've read a couple books about the time period. Yersinia pestis is the name of the bacteria, and it hides in soil and unearths itself all the time, and we have little Black Plague outbreaks every once in a while. Long story short, it was reasonably priced, and so I jumped on it. This is the republishing of it. I'm gonna go back to plugging away and reading more of this. I'm gonna finish this before we leave. So my plan is to pull a second book from my pot of potential lucky gold. And then I'll bring another book on vacation with us, and I'll bring you on vacation with us to make this blog a little bit more interesting. I finished an Arcane Inheritance, and I'm here to let you know what I think. I can see why this gets polarizing reviews. I believe when I originally put it on this list, it was sitting at a 3.6. I think it was like right in the middle of my range of 10 books that fell into the mid review category. I'm gonna try my best to explain what I thought without giving spoilers away. I think I can. I will probably do a little spoilery, but I'll notify you when the spoilers come so that you can skip past them should you want to avoid spoilers. Last time I checked in, I talked about how the writing was very flowery and descriptive, and for the first 25%, that felt totally fine. I enjoyed it. I was liking it. And then when I actually checked in with you, I was about 50% of the way in, and I felt like it actually wasn't so much that the writing was different or that I wasn't enjoying the writing, but I felt like the plot wasn't going anywhere, and that's what was frustrating me. I felt like a lot of the same things were happening over and over again. I was a little frustrated with nobody was responding to situations the way that I thought they should. I couldn't tell if this was a world where people knew magic existed and our main character was coming into her magic, or if this was a world where magic was supposed to be surprising and you would be shocked if you found out you have magic. And it continued to feel like that. It wasn't, and I wrote it down, I have notes here, it really wasn't until the 80% mark that a huge plot thing happened. I ended up giving this 4 stars, which is higher than the average rating, and it's purely because of everything that happened in the last 20% of the book. All of the previous writing choices, all of the previous responses of the character made sense once you got to the last 20% of the book. I can't tell you more than that without things being spoilery. I feel like this would make a really good movie because the movie wouldn't be as much of a personal time investment, if that makes sense. Like if it was a 3-hour movie, it would still go through all of the same descriptions and emotions and vibe and feeling as the book did, but it would feel like less of a commitment. All of this kind of led to this question that I had, this moral quandary. In January, I read The Buffalo Hunter, which I thought was really good. It was 5 stars for me up until the last 40 or so pages. And the last 40 pages made me decrease my overall rating from 5 stars to 4 stars. So I remember having some conversations with my colleagues. Is it better to have a really good book with a ending, or to have a slow book with a really good ending? On Arcane Inheritance, it was by no means a bad book or anything like that, but the first 80% started to feel so repetitive and so slow that I wonder how many people would get to the point where it all started to make sense. You would really, I feel like you have to be invested to get to that point. And is it a good book if a lot of people are going to abandon it before they get to that point? And I mean, I did. I will tell you, I was committed. I read it in 4 days. You know, it was, I had the time to commit to reading large chunks of it. You know, I'm on spring break. I didn't have as many other commitments. I think if I had read this when I was at like work, when I was doing my full-time gig, it would have taken me longer, and I probably would have gotten more and more annoyed and frustrated that it was slow going and things were taking a while. It would start to feel repetitive if you really couldn't commit to large chunks of time to read it. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little spoilery here. So I'll mark it, skip ahead if you want to avoid spoilers. By the end of the book, the reason that everything felt repetitive and felt like I wasn't sure what was going on, like I had missed chunks, is that is exactly what our main character was going through. She was reliving the same dream-like magical state over and over and over again. She had been in stasis, for lack of a better word, magical stasis, for 3 years, and it was all building up to this climax where her and her love interest, the male main character of the book, Hudson, so Ellery and Hudson, had come up with this plan that was going to tear the whole system down, that was going to tear this magical system down. And it took a very long time, and her repeating the same, not exactly the same dream, but the same type of situation over and over and over again with some, you know, slight differences before they could do the big thing that she was going to do. She had to remember essentially that she was going through a dream and that she had experienced all of this before. And so once that big reveal came out, it made sense why everything felt repetitive and why it felt like a dream and why people were not responding to things the way that I thought they should be responding to them. He was not very good at lying, basically. And there was a lot of people in the book that weren't very good at lying. And that's why I felt like our main character was naive, because she wasn't seeing through this. But at the same point, some of her responses felt very like naive and dreamlike, because deep down she knew what the truth was. She just had to like remember it, essentially. I think that's kind of the end of the spoilers there. So I'll mark this as the end of the spoilers. This was a good book to use like my rating system for. So I thought the setting was really good. I gave the setting 5 stars. I really did like the writing. I am fine with like flowery writing as long as it's not like so flowery that I, you know, have lost the theme. The characters, I struggled with how to rate the characters. I liked the characters and I liked the side characters. I was frustrated with their responses to things, but by the end of the book, I understood their responses. So I ended up rating the characters in like the 4-star range. The plot, I think originally I would have ranked the plot lower had I not made it to the last 20% of the book. So I gave the plot a high rating. Readability and enjoyment were where I kind of docked it. I gave both of those like a 3.5 star. I think if I had to commit to this book for a week and not try to knock it out in a couple days, I would not have enjoyed it. I would have felt like I was wasting my time. It would have felt like a slog. It wasn't difficult to read. Like readability wasn't difficult in phrasing or anything like that. I felt like there were times where I was just like, am I missing something? And I would like go back. I would feel like there would be really poor editing, but really that's just the way it was supposed to feel. And so it's kind of this question of, if you don't understand the choices of the book to commit to the plot long enough to get to the end, where's the balance of like the good book or not? I think that if you can commit to it, if you can see it all the way through, I actually do think that this was fairly enjoyable. I knocked it down because 80%, in my opinion, is very far to get to a book before you feel like you have buy-in. But the other side of that is I read Gideon the Ninth, and when I went into Harrow the Ninth, I knew that Harrow the Ninth was going to be complicated, and I had read tons of reviews where people were like, just stick with it, you're going to be confused, and it was pretty far into that book too before you really understood what was going on. I still don't feel like it was 80% though, but that one I knew going into it, so maybe if you know know going into this that you really have to, get to the end, then it's worth it, I will say. Yeah, I could see why this has mid reviews, because if somebody didn't read it all the way through and then abandoned it, they would give it a low review. If somebody just couldn't connect with the characters and they got so frustrated by it, I could see them giving it a low review. So this was perfect for the theme in all actuality, but I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I could tell people about it. I would be so cautious to recommend it to people because I would be like, oh, you have to get to the end. Like, if you have to get to the end to enjoy a book, like, is it really an enjoyable experience? I don't know. So I don't know if I'm going to keep this or get rid of it. I'm so like torn right now. So I'm going to have to sit on this for a little bit before I decide. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's definitely not a 6-star eye-opening, will be in my top book recommendations list by any stretch of the imagination. I'm now going to go through and read other reviews. It'd be interesting to know other people that read it and like have conversations with them about it. That being said, we're leaving tomorrow. We got to take the pets in. We got to return some clothes. We're going to go get our nails done. And before I do that, I decided I'm going to pick another book. I'm enjoying this method. I have the time. I'm still on spring break. So I have my lucky pot of book gold. I still have my tokens in here. They're not really tokens, they're strips of paper that I rolled up. There's 2 of them that I took out because they are on the longer side. While I do have some found time, I want to finish it while we're on break. So there's 2 of them that I took out just because they're on the longer side, and I knew I wouldn't be able to finish in time to, wrap this up and get it edited and get it posted. I've got 7 books in here. I'm hoping for some good luck. This book, An Arcane Inheritance, wasn't bad luck by any stretch of the imagination. I want something enjoyable to read while I'm on vacation, because if it's not enjoyable, then I'm not gonna feel motivated to pick it up when we're on the plane or in the hotel room or something like that. Hopefully I get something good. Oh, dropped it. Okay. Oh, it's upside down. Okay, this is exciting. This is the Hexologists. So this is one of the ones I am excited to read. Let me get my copy. Here's my copy of The Hexologists by Josiah Bancroft. When I originally talked about these books, this one had a 3.79, 3.8 rating. So this is on the higher end of the scale, I would say. So this is a married couple. It's not like a romance where they're finding each other. They are definitely already together. The Wilby couple, they are private investigators that use magic essentially to solve crimes. The Hexologists, Isolde and Warren Wilby, are quite accustomed to helping desperate clients with the bugbears of city life. Aided by hexes and a bag of charmed relics, the Wilbys are well acquainted with the weird, and they never shy away from a challenging case. This is the first book in a series. They're approached by the royal secretary, and the king wants them to solve a case, is what it sounds like. A royal secret buried under years and years of lies bring them nose to nose with a violent anti-royalist gang. A bookish dragon, oh interesting, who only occasionally eats people. So this sounds like it has a little bit of humor, a little bit of fantasy, I think some blatant magic is what it sounds like. So it's very different from what I just read, which is good. I think this is going to be a little bit more fun. I will bring this with me. I will keep you posted while I'm reading it, and we'll see how this one compares. If I got lucky again, question mark, or maybe I got more lucky this time. Next time I see you, we'll be in New York. La 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 we are in our hotel, and on the trip I started the Hexologists. I read a little bit on the plane, so it's pretty straightforward so far. It starts out right away, and royal, what is he? Somebody that works for the king has come and has presented the issues of the case. Our two main characters, Iz and Warren, and Iz is not interested at all because she wants nothing to do with the royal family or things royal. She's been burned in the past, but her husband is a little bit more accommodating. He's kind of like her opposite. She's your, how do I put this? Your apprehensive, all I can think are negative words. She's your more apprehensive person that questions everything. She's a little bit more pessimistic, and he's definitely much more optimistic and accommodating. He teases that, you know, she terrifies everyone and she's kind of brusque, if you will. She really wants nothing to do with it, but her husband's like, well, let's hear him out. And while they're explaining things, or while this gentleman is explaining things to them about the issue, a giant golem-like creature comes in and terrorizes them. And so that just kind of piques Iz's interest a little bit more. But this is obviously a world where people know magic exists. He comes to them specifically because they're hexologists. There is magic that this world uses of various kinds as kind of like their technology. So it's a little bit different than the last book I read where I couldn't tell if magic existed or not. This one, there definitely is. It's not necessarily something that everybody uses or relies on or likes. So there seems to be this polarizing dichotomy of magic users and non-magic users. But then there's also people, royalists, and people that are anti-royalists. And so there's a lot of like polarizing issues so far. But I'm not very far. I'm enjoying it so far. I have to like slow it down a little bit when I'm listening to it. We're gonna go out and about, and I'll try to get some footage while we're walking around, but we're gonna go to the Empire State Building. That's all I got for now. Hopefully that looks good. So it is our last day in New York City. I am about 50% of the way through the Hexologists. So I wanted to give you a check-in. I'll keep it spoiler-free. This is one of those books where at the end of every chapter there's like a cliffhanger and you want to keep reading to know what's happening next. It's also a book where you're thrown into the world without knowing much background, which means there's not a lot of telling. You just kind of have to roll with it and trust that it'll either make sense in the future or trust that you don't need to know all of the nitty-gritty. The general mystery is that an assistant to the king comes and says the king's been acting weird, and also somebody is claiming to be his heir. The sister princess is more concerned about the mystery illness than like him acting weird than she is about this supposed heir, because there's probably lots of people in the past that have claimed to be supposed heirs. But the assistant, he has a name. He has a title, I guess I should say. He's like the king's right-hand man. Oh, he's the royal secretary. That's what he is. So the royal secretary is more concerned about the heir because it came with some pretty strong evidence that this person is somehow tied with the king. That's why Warren and Isolde are being hired, essentially. So there's some odd things that are going on. And at first, Isolde wants nothing to do with it, but Warren kind of talks her into it. They have this magical suitcase that is full of objects, but they also find out has a dragon in it. That's more tied to Isolde's past and her father and his work. And so they are basically trying to solve this mystery of who this person might be that essentially got the king's crest, his ring that was supposedly lost. And it takes them down this path to a woman who has since died, so they go into the underworld and they try to learn about her history. They run into some anti-royalists. There's a lot that's going on. It has a sense of steampunk, like there's magic that is controlling a lot of technology. It's definitely a world where magic is known, and there's lots of different types of magic, but some of them have been banished. Isolde is kind of like a star in this world. Their magic is allowed, but wizardry is not allowed, necromancy is not allowed, and so there are like forbidden types of magic. I feel like every couple chapters there is a big event that happens. Like I don't even think I could, summarize all of the big events. So there is a lot that is happening from day to day. It's almost like exhausting. So obviously we're on vacation, and so part of me is also exhausted when I'm reading. I do keep reading like large chunks of it. The writing is really good. It's really strong. I think Isolde and Warren are a good balance for each other. Isolde is kind of like, I'll do what I want. You can't tell me what to do. She is kind of intimidating to people, but Warren is her balance. He keeps her grounded. They love each other. They have a good relationship. They're a good like yin and yang to each other. It would definitely be a different book if Warren wasn't in it. Like I said, it has a lot going on, but it would be really easy for me to pick up and put down. But part of that could just be because I'm on vacation and I am mildly exhausted when I'm reading it. It's not confusing other than, I said there's parts of it where you just kind of have to go like, okay, this will hopefully make sense, or it doesn't need to make 100% sense, and you just kind of roll with it. There's a lot of plot. There's a lot of things moving it forward. I would say part of it is that I haven't found a reason to care. I care about Isolde and Warren more than I care about the king and the mystery, if that makes sense. I like our main characters. Our main characters are the reason that I continue to read. It's not so much about the mystery. So maybe that's what it is, but I'm still going to read it. I kind of see it leaning towards like a 3.5 to 4 right now. Like I said, that's purely based on the 50% mark. I am also listening to it. I do like the audio narrator. She's doing a good job. I can tell the difference between all of the voices, and there's not anything confusing in terms of, the audio narration or the text or anything like that. There is an index in the back of all of the different hexes, and then there is a cast of characters in the front. I thought that would be telling, like, oh no, I'm gonna have to look a bunch of stuff up. You could, I suppose, like if you wanted to know more about the hexes that she was casting something or you wanted to know more about people, you could totally look them up. I haven't felt the need to. It almost seems superfluous, but it's there if you want it. I was a little worried that I was going to have to reference a bunch of things while I was reading it, and that hasn't been the case. I would say that I'm motivated by Isolde and Warren. I'm not so much motivated by the actual mystery. We'll see how much I get read on the flight back. I'll read some more tonight, and then I will check in with you when I'm done. Well, I finished the Hexologists just now. I still had, I don't know, maybe a third of the book left. And at first I wasn't sure if I would get to finish, but we were one of the unfortunate people stuck in the hours and hours of TSA security lines while trying to fly home. And I read a little bit while we were in line. We arrived to the airport 3 hours early and we still missed our flight. And we ended up being booked on a later flight. So then we were stuck in the airport for another 6+ hours, I think. So I definitely got some more reading done. We did make it home that evening, much later than we wanted to, but at that point we were glad that we were back home, period. Oh, I don't know, I had maybe another 1.5 to 2 hours left, and I thought for sure that I might finish last night, but we did have to get up really early to make it to the airport 3 hours early, and so I think I was just too tired, and I read a little bit more, but I didn't finish until today. I think I had mentioned that I was struggling to focus and stay super interested, but now I really do think that was just because we were on vacation. That doesn't normally happen to me. I can normally read when I'm on vacation. I don't necessarily read as much, and I guess it kind of depends on what type of vacation we're on. Since I did read a little bit while we were at home, I think I can safely say that was more, it was the situation, reading in the airport, being worried about flights and watching other flights get canceled and thinking about all the shoulda, woulda, coulda, the decisions that we made that potentially made us late for our flight. I think all of that together was what was making me distracted. When we were in the city, we were trying to make decisions about when we were going to go places and where we were going to eat. And so I think my mind was just kind of in general in other places. Overall, I did end up liking this. It is more mystery, I would say. It reminds me of the Anna and Din mystery series, not so much in writing style, but in the sense that it is really more of a Sherlock Holmes style mystery that takes place in a magical, fantastical world. It is a world more like ours than the Shadows of the Leviathan series, but it is truly a mystery. And I think I've mentioned this with other books before. I don't try to solve mysteries when I'm reading them. I just kind of go with the flow. So there were multiple twists in here that I didn't see coming, but I also wouldn't say that I was looking for them. I never look for them. I just kind of go along with the story. The mystery seemed solved, or the case seemed solved about halfway through, but obviously I knew there was more to come that kept the story going. Each chapter isn't really told from a different point of view, but within a chapter, you will hear a side of what's happening from Isolde's point of view, and then it will switch to Warren's point of view. And number one, it makes them both feel like the main character. It's not like one of them is overpowering the other's story, but it also was an interesting way to keep some interest in the story. So for example, there was a situation where Isolde got herself into a precarious situation, if you will. She's climbing outside of a building, like on, we'll just call them rafters for lack of a better description, windowsills and things like that. Her husband sees her and he's talking to somebody and he's like, excuse me, I need to go use your telephone. It's not called the telephone, but that's essentially what he's doing. And then the story goes back to Isolde's point of view and you can kind of hear about what she's going through and her side of things. And then later on, you hear Warren's point of view about what he did when he went to go use the telephone. And so it's a good way to keep some mystery in the story and to keep some of the interesting plot points going by switching back and forth between the different viewpoints, and also switching back and forth in like non-chronological order, not like super time jumps, but like a little like, oh, while this was happening, this was also happening. In the grand scheme of things, I'm not entirely sure. Let me look and see I don't remember what the rating on this one was. I'm not entirely sure why this was a mid rating. It has a 3.79, a 3.8. We'll just call it a 3.8. So that definitely is on the higher end of a mid rating. I enjoyed this. This was written for somebody like me that enjoys a good mystery in a fantastical world. This past year in 2025, I did start reading the Shadows of the Leviathan books, the Robert Jackson Bennett books, and those also take place in a very fantastical world with a lot of unique names, and it's not really magic, it's biotechnology is what it is, so plant-based technology, and you don't understand, you just kind of roll with it. You figure it out as you're reading the book. It's not everything is explained right away. You figure out a lot of things from context. This book is also like that. There is a glossary, of hexes essentially, and a list of characters. I never looked up any of the hexes because I didn't really care, and they also just told you what the hex did right afterwards. Like she would cast the hex and then it would do what it was supposed to. I will say that for me, the Shadow of the Leviathan books were a little bit more like interesting and kept my attention more than this particular world, but not in a way that I would give this a poor review. Those books, the Anna and Din books, those are like 5-star books for me. I'm really excited for the third one that's going to come out. I haven't decided where I'm going to land with this one, but it will probably be like a high 4, like a 4.5 or something like that. I really did like the characters. I thought Isolde and Warren were a really good balance for each other. Their dynamic together was really cute. You don't see a lot of books with already married, already established couples. Josiah Bancroft did a really good job of writing a really good, healthy, solid relationship. The male character in this, Warren, he is like this big, brutish man, but he's definitely like the kinder cinnamon roll teddy bear, whatever you want to call him. And then Isolde is much more competent in the magical arts. Warren really doesn't do any magic per se. Isolde is the one that does all of the hexing, and she is like the brains of the operation. Not that Warren is like an oaf or anything like that, but he's the heart and she's more of like the practical realist, is I would say what it is. There is a second one in the series. I think I am interested in the second one. I bought this one at Half Price Books, so it was already used, and I'll probably look for the second one at Half Price Books, or try to get it at a really good price. I will keep this one and I will seek out the next one. And I also don't feel like it's one where I need to read the next one right away. I think they are going to be like separate mysteries, and I feel like I'll get back into the characters. For me, I don't know that this was a like feeling lucky meh kind of review. I could see some people not like being thrown into a separate world where things aren't really explained a whole lot. You just kind of go with the flow of how the world works. I know that some people kind of shy away from that stuff. The mystery was very like twisty and interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of the reviews and see what it is that people don't like about this. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do with an Arcane Inheritance. I don't necessarily think about the plot of the book. It's only been like a week or so since I finished. I think about it more in the sense of, is a book really a good book if you have to make it so far in to get it or to understand what's going on? I'm glad I did. I'm glad I gave it a chance. I could see giving it away to somebody that I know, seeing if anybody else wants to try it. I could see having somebody else read it and then having some interesting conversations just about, like I said, the overall idea of what is it that, defines something as like a good book. And I could also see it being a movie or a television show, like a mini series kind of like thing. I think it would make a really good movie, but I'm leaning towards getting rid of it. Again, I know it's like 4 stars. I ended up giving it 4 stars. But I can't really see myself rereading it and getting like a whole lot more out of it. It's kind of like The Sixth Sense, where once you watch it once, like yes, you could watch it again and see what things you notice, but it's not going to have the same impact. That's the most I can say without like giving away like spoilery things. So I'm leaning towards keeping the Hexologists and getting rid of an Arcane Inheritance. That's it for this month's Reading Down My TBR. If you have any thoughts on either of the books that I read, or if you have either of them on your TBR, let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this series, make sure you give a like and subscribe. Next month for April, I'll be doing some spring cleaning of my shelves. I need to make room for some more Aardvark books and some more Owl Crate books that I have coming in, not to mention just some other books that I want to read. My shelves are getting kind of tight. I'm having to get really particular with how I arrange books so that I can get them to fit. I'll see you next month, and until then, happy reading.